And my dad would often tell me, hey, I'm not going to be around forever. I would scoff it off, Well, obviously. Oh, well, thankfully nothing's going to be around forever. Yeah. Brought it up before, but again, like my old man, I like to repeat myself. My father and his father, they didn't have a dysfunctional relationship, but just generationally, they didn't really have an honest one. Like, my father can barely remember any, real vulnerable, emotional conversations they shared, And in the end, they were very distant. That haunted my father, I believe. Because, there's the opposite with his mother. They had just a warm relationship. I never got a chance to meet my grandmother on my father's side. She died a couple years before I was born. 56, I believe. Lung cancer, So that shadow always haunted my father. He didn't think he would make it. He thought lung cancer was going to take him out. Close. Though again, there were many times where he would bring up, and I quote, the doctor ever tells me I get brain cancer and I get 24 hours left to live. I'm going to use that time to kill your mother. She doesn't take all my money. So I, being such a dumbass, he was a smart man. He would make some dark jokes. But it was the 80s. It was the 80s, And my father's musical tastes were always that nostalgic period in the 60s, before Manson, before things took a turn, before Speed and Dope took over, when it was just a bunch of hippies, love and peace, He believed in those things. He really believed in those things. In his later years, particularly, putting on the costume of the Teamster, he would become very gruff and cynical, fuck 'em all, George Carlin, but, those were defense mechanisms. Trust me, I feel this coursing through my very veins and my being, the echoes of generations, Despite all the cycles I try to break, I am well aware of the ones I'm perpetuating. Some I'm very proud to. Some not so much. But the serenity to accept the things you cannot change, courage to change the things you can, the wisdom to know the difference. Even if my father thought there was a lot of gobbledygook behind those mantras, he would often repeat them, and he would try to tell me, despite his cynicism and his constant questioning, to believe in the simple things sometimes. And certainly to trust things outside yourself. He questioned his Catholic upbringing. In many ways, I would get him to challenge that. To the point where even in the later years, when I was becoming a bit more spiritual, my father, I believe, was on the verge of a sort of nihilism. But again, he lived and always believed deep down in the power of redemption. He saw it within me. It was a heavy burden as a child and a teenager, and as an adult now, knowing how much my father depended on me as his namesake to do better, to be better. The dreams and aspirations he had for me that I know I'd never achieve. But again, I remember the way they used to grade things, and this was going back into middle school, would be, you'd have your grades, and you'd have a section that would be about your behavior and just whether or not you were fucking a good person or an asshole, pretty much. My father told me he always cared more about that part, and that the grades were whatever. Shit, he fucking ghosted his way through some bullshit he understood. But he would tell me this. He'd say, listen, And again, the bar is set so low. Which is why I think I had my own accord strove to achieve so well academically. It wasn't really pressure. If anything, I was doing, But I was trying to be a good person. It's not always a success. But my father instilled in me, be a good person. He taught me, treat everybody the same. Treat them the same on the way up as you would on the way down. You're going to see the same people. Don't ever think you're better than anybody else. He'd then go wink, wink. A lot of these motherfuckers are just a bunch of idiots. But okay, they don't know what they do. My father was more than me. I'm realizing a very forgiving man. Again, the nature of his long up and down path with substance abuse and recovery. Which is why he always forgave my mother her trespasses and allowed her back in, to protect her. That was the thing. No matter how much my father would motherfuck her and say blah blah blah, just duh. If you got a call, hey, so and so's threatening to hit me or da da da, he'd be there. He was a man of peace, but he wouldn't be afraid to stop somebody from hurting the people he cared about. Even people who would hurt him. That even when there were times during my more darker days when I was trying to keep him away, and I would say things that would be so cruel, and he would always maintain his love for me. And so in my vanity, I used to think it was pathetic. No. Some of the greatest strength I've ever seen. What my father did. Despite the decades and the damage done, both of the needle and just of the world. In spite of his own cynicism and self-imposed misery often, he always found a way to smile and laugh and make other people smile and laugh. He was a kind man, he was a gracious man, he was a giving man. He really made the world a better place. Just by being. Even when he wasn't doing. Just by being. And again, not to speak too ill of the dead, but he wasn't perfect. He made many mistakes. Many more than I was aware of. He owned up to a lot of them with me. At a young age. Which, times when I needed it, times when I needed to be easy on myself and forgive myself, it's always my father's voice. It echoed in my ears, always the lessons that I saw from my father. And again, it's all about me and it's selfish, but just seeing that he could do that, and that's how he maintained his happiness, his joy. And I don't know. I was reflecting on a story I've told often about my childhood dog died in my arms. And my father was there. The intensity of that moment. But I tell you, as hard as it would have been, as heavy as it would have been, I really wish I could have gotten into that hospice care with him, into that hospital with him, and been there with him. If I knew he was dying, I would have been there every fucking minute. I would have snuck out maybe for a bowl or two once in a while, but I would have been there every fucking minute. And I would have been privileged to do to my other best friend what I did to an older one. and hold him as he went. Even if it was just comatose, to get one last chance to gaze into his beautiful blue eyes that always held this kindness. No matter how glazed over they were by the dope or the drinking or his moments of doubt, detachment. He always had such calming and serene eyes. And I wasn't there in the final moment, but in hindsight, there were many times where I was there with him when he was near the brink. Oh, I saw him near the brink. But still, something about him, even in him just laid out, resonated such a strength, such a resilience, such a Sisyphean tenacity. Like, again, it's the Irish way to take such a vice, a character vice, of pride, but to take it to such an extreme, almost a comically absurd extreme, that it becomes a blazing virtue. That's how it was with my father. Up until he couldn't, he always was able to get back up on his feet and pull a rabbit out of a hat and lead a miraculous life, a wonderful life. The amount of people already who came up to me, or strange family members, my mother and my sister's side, who come up to me and nothing but kindness and nothing but positive memories. And all my friends who met him, couldn't help but fall in love with the man. He was always destined for greatness. And he didn't think he got it because he thought it was going to be again through the hoops. But no matter what happened, no matter what the disease was, he was just so anointed and destined for greatness that he, even in a sad, lonely, avoidable death, he achieved that greatness. He was a great man, the greatest man I ever met, and I got a chance to tell him that. I'm so glad I got a chance to tell him that. As long as I breathe, I'm gonna make sure whatever forms I can that I tell other people that too. And I'm not gonna let any amount of cynicism, any amount of fucking fucked up bullshit that other people do to me or that I do to myself make me forget about my father. William Francis Moffett.